I used to think the worst phone call of my life would be the one telling me I had cancer. I was wrong. The worst call was the one I made after, to my own son. That phone call taught me more about my 2 kids in 90 seconds than 26 years of raising them ever did. Welcome back to Dad's Pure Revenge. If you're new here, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from tonight. I read every one. All right, let me tell you what happened. My daughter Callie was 24, working the counter at an auto parts store on Route 9 in Danville, Ohio, splitting a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate just to make rent. She wasn't rich. She wasn't even comfortable. But every Sunday, rain or shine, she showed up at my house with a rotisserie chicken from the Kroger deli, because she knew I hated cooking for one since her mother passed. She'd sit at my kitchen table, eat off paper plates with me, and ask about my knees, my truck, my garden. Real questions, not the kind people ask because they're supposed to. Last winter my water heater went out. Didn't say a word to anybody. Callie found out anyway, from a neighbor, and showed up Saturday morning in old jeans with a receipt from the hardware store already in her pocket. $41. She wouldn't take a dime back. "You'd do it for me," she said, like it was nothing. My name's Russell Hargrove, 61 years old, retired maintenance foreman, worked the county water plant for 32 years. I've got one flaw I'll admit right up front. I spent too many years being proud of my son's success and not enough time noticing what it had done to him. Because my son, Trent Hargrove, was the one everybody in Danville bragged about. 32 years old, real estate investment firm out in Columbus, drove a black Range Rover, wore suits that cost more than my truck payment. I used to tell the guys at the diner about him like he'd hung the moon. It was a Tuesday, March 3rd, 9:14 in the morning, when Dr. Patel at St. Francis Hospital in Mount Vernon told me the mass in my colon needed surgery within the month. Not next year. Not let's watch it. Now. The number the billing office gave me after insurance was $3,200, due before they'd schedule the operating room date. I didn't have it. My pension covers the mortgage and groceries, and that's about the size of it. So I did what I thought any father had the right to do. I called my son. He picked up on the 4th ring. I could hear voices behind him, somebody laughing, glasses clinking like they were still at lunch. "Dad, can I call you back? We just closed a $12 million deal. We're kind of celebrating." I told him it was important. I told him about the surgery. There was a pause. 3 seconds, maybe 4. I counted them without meaning to. And then he said it, flat and easy, like he was reading me a weather report. "There's no money for you right now, Dad. Things are tight on our end too. I'm sure you'll figure it out." Figure it out. That's what my son told his father with cancer. I didn't say anything back. I just said okay, and hung up, and sat down at the kitchen table in the dark, because I hadn't turned the lights on yet. I didn't call Callie. I didn't call anybody. I just sat with it. 2 days went by. I told myself I'd find a way. Sell the boat maybe. The old bass boat I never used anymore. I didn't examine what Trent had said too closely yet. I just let it sit there in the room with me. Cold. The way spoiled milk sits in the fridge, until you finally have to deal with it. Then Thursday evening, March 5th, 6:40 p.m., there's a knock at my door. It's Callie, still in her work polo, smelling like motor oil and cold air. She's got an envelope in her hand. "Dad, I heard from Aunt Diane you might need help with something. Why didn't you call me?" I told her I didn't want to be a burden on her, not with her own bills. She just looked at me the way her mother used to look at me, when I was being stubborn for no good reason. She sat down across from me and slid the envelope over. $2,000. Cash. She'd cashed out a chunk of her 401k from the parts store, the one retirement account she had, and taken a payday advance for the rest. "Here's $2,000, she said. "I know it's not the full amount, But we'll figure out the rest together. You're not doing this alone. We. Together. The same words Trent had turned inside out into something cruel, she made sound like the most natural thing in the world. I didn't cry in front of her. I waited till she left. Then I sat at that same table and I cried like I hadn't since my wife's funeral. That was the moment something in me went quiet and still. Not angry, not yet. Just done pretending I hadn't seen what I'd seen. If you've got a Callie in your life, the kid who shows up with $41 and no complaints, let her know in the comments below. Those are the ones worth everything. The next morning I called my attorney, a woman named Denise Coyle who'd handled my late wife's estate. I told her I wanted to revise my will. She asked why. I told her exactly why, word for word, the $12 million and the 4 seconds of silence, and figure it out. She didn't say much, just wrote it down and said she'd have papers ready by Monday. Callie ended up driving me to St. Francis herself on the morning of the surgery, March 24th, 6:15 a.m. Sat in that waiting room for 6 hours drinking bad vending machine coffee, and was the first face I saw when I woke up. Surgery went clean. Margins were clear. Dr. Patel said I'd caught it in time. I healed slow, the way you do at 61. Callie came by 3-4 times a week. Never once brought up the money again. Never once asked why Trent hadn't called. Trent didn't call. Not once. Not during the surgery, not during recovery. 41 days of nothing. I know, because I counted, the same way I'd counted those 4 seconds on the phone. Then, on May 2nd, everything changed at once. My cousin Marlene, who does the books for a mortgage broker in Columbus, mentioned offhand at a family cookout that Trent's $12 million deal had fallen through in April. Some zoning issue on the property, investors pulled out, and Trent's firm was underwater on 2 other developments besides. The Range Rover, it turned out, was leased. The suits were on a credit card he hadn't paid off in 8 months. I didn't feel joy hearing it. I want to be honest about that. I just felt something settle into place, like a key finally fitting a lock. Denise called me the same week to finalize the new will. I'd left my house, paid off, worth around $190,000, and my modest savings entirely to Callie. Not out of spite. Because when I was flat on my back in a hospital bed, she was the one who showed up, and a will is supposed to tell the truth about a life, not flatter the people who showed up for the parts that were easy. I didn't tell Trent about the will. I didn't tell him anything. I just kept living quiet, healing, letting Callie bring her chicken on Sundays. He found out on his own, in June, when Denise's office sent a routine notice to both listed children informing them the estate documents had been updated. Standard procedure. Nothing dramatic. Just a letter. He showed up at my door on June 14th, a Sunday, 4 minutes before Callie usually arrived with dinner. He didn't knock so much as he pounded. "Dad, what is this? You wrote me out? After everything I've done for this family?" I looked at him a long moment. Same suit, a little wrinkled now. Same cologne. Different man underneath it, though. I could see that now, the way you can see cracks in a foundation once you know to look for them. "What exactly did you do, Trent?" I asked him. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. He didn't have an answer. Not one. He stood there working his jaw like he was trying to find words that weren't there. Because there weren't any. There never had been. Not on March 3rd, and not since. "You told your father to figure it out," I said. "Alone. With cancer. I figured it out, Trent. I figured out plenty." He left without another word. The door didn't slam behind him. Somehow that was worse than if it had. Callie pulled up 4 minutes later, right on time, rotisserie chicken in a paper bag, asking how my follow-up appointment went that week, same as she always did. Like nothing in the world was owed to her. Like she wasn't the whole reason I was alive to answer. I sleep fine these days. Better than I have in years, honestly. Not because I got some kind of revenge. I didn't scheme for any of this. I just told the truth on paper. The same truth that had been sitting right there in front of me the whole time. I just finally let myself see it. Some nights I sit on the back porch with a cup of coffee gone lukewarm, listening to the Hargroves dog next door bark twice at nothing. And I think about how close I came to dying believing my son was the one who loved me best, simply because he was the one everybody bragged about. Turns out love was never about the $12 million deals. It was about the $41 water heater. It always had been. I just needed cancer to teach me how to count what actually mattered. If this story meant something to you, if you've got someone in your life who shows up quiet and steady while somebody else just talks big, go tell them today. Don't wait for a hospital bed to say it. And if you believe the ones who show up are the ones who deserve everything, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.